Okay, I think we are going to start now. We're conscious to try and start on time as much as possible as we can. So I will just, we have a number of people joining and there'll be people joining as we continue. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to our June Women's Philanthropy Circle. My name is Briona Sheils and I am the Director of HR for Focus Ireland. I'm delighted to host today on behalf of Amy Carr, our Fundraising and Marketing Director, who can't be here today. Joining us are our two inspirational guests, Sonya Lennon, who you may all know and recognise from her many appearances on TV with her friend and business partner Brendan Courtney, as well as on the display boards in Dunnes stores where the collection is sold. Just regarding any questions, if there's any questions for Sonya that you'd like to ask, please put them in the chat and we'll try and address them as we go along. There will be a lot of time at the end for questions and answers as well. Also joining us today is my colleague Aisling O'Connor, who is our project leader in our Cork and Kerry team. So delighted to have you along today as well, Aisling. So just before we start, I'd really like to just thank our philanthropy fundraising team, in particular Liam Redmond and Cian Dicker, for organising this online event. And also a huge thank you to Aisling Nolan, who's been a great support. There's a lot of work to do behind the scenes to make one of these events run smoothly, and they've done that for us today so far. So I was reminded this week that my first Women's Philanthropy Circle was approximately July 2019, about 6 weeks before I joined Focus Ireland. I had just accepted the role and was excited to experience a Focus Ireland event and meet some of the new team I would be joining. Some of you in the members might remember it was a summer evening event in 9 Below on St. Stephen's Green, and I'd been invited to attend by Mary O'Dea, the CEO I was working for at the time, who is a member of the WPC. I recall on the night hearing members and Focus Ireland staff speak about this incredible circle and the impact it was having on young people. It's lovely to see so many familiar names on the guest list and to have our own staff who are joining us today as well. I started my new job in Focus Ireland in September 2019 and had never worked in the charity sector before. I was very excited to take on the role of Director of Human Resources and had a very warm welcome from colleagues across the organisation. Little did I know that the challenge of a new role would bring such changes and a requirement to work in a very different way. And I'm not talking about the shine a light night sleep out just about a month after I joined. I didn't anticipate that within my first weeks that I'd be sleeping in a sleeping bag next to the also new Director of Services in front of the Law Society, but I won't get into that on this occasion. Many of us in Focus have been on the front lines throughout the pandemic, and our support functions have been working remotely for the most part. I am back in the office today and a little sense of normality is returning. Through this past 18 months, our aim was, and still is, to keep our customers and staff safe. The pandemic has been challenging, however, it has given us in HR the opportunity to work with our employee engagement group to deliver many wellness supports across the organisation. These include an employee assistance programme and online well-being and benefits with an organisation called Workit, who have donated their services to us since early 2020. Additionally, we have been able to avail of meditations, mindfulness and health workshops. June is our Wellness Month and we have many events lined up for our staff, including women's and men's health engagement activities, dance classes, and internal education in the form of sessions on LGBTQI+, to help us celebrate Pride and understand the importance of correct terminology and where to seek support. In Focus Ireland, we have just launched our most ambitious organisational strategy to date. Many of you may have been at the recent launch. The strategy shifts the way we work and places the people we work for at the core of all we do, rather than how we work. The 4 work streams, or the 4 groups of people that we work with and serve, are families with complex needs, families who are economically homeless, single adults with complex needs, and what might be interesting to you all to hear today is that we have a dedicated stream on young people. I'm very privileged to lead the work stream on young people and to collaborate with my colleagues across Focus Ireland to map out the next 5 years of how we plan to work with young people and end youth homelessness. The thing about so many young people, in particular those who leave state care and who end up in homelessness, is that it shouldn't ever happen. For young people, we know who they are and we know what services and interventions work, and we know at what point in their lives that they are at most risk of being homeless. As a part of the Youth Homeless Strategy, we have set a number of KPIs for ourselves and the government, including a youth strategy to end homelessness, as well as making key strides in youth housing first education, and prevention in the form of mediation. So now I'd like to introduce Sonya Lennon. I'm going to hand over to Sonya. Many of you will be familiar with Sonya, who is a designer, a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and equality advocate. She will be most known for her women's wear brand, Lennon Courtney, that she founded with Brendan Courtney. However, that's not all she has achieved. Sonya is the founder of National Leadership Initiative, Lift Ireland, and Dress for Success Dublin, amongst others. Dress for Success has been a great supporter of Focus Ireland, and they have hosted a session for the women living in one of our services in Stanhope Green. I also think some of our staff availed of that service too and joined in. It is crucially important that people at the most vulnerable time of their lives are empowered and encouraged to feel good about themselves again and regain their pride and know that this is just a period in their lives. The session with Dress for Success helped with that journey. So please welcome Sonya. I'm going to hand over to you, Sonya.
Thank you so much, Briona, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I have to say, the work that you do at Focus is just so important, and it's so linked to, I suppose, what I find as a core value in everything that I do around, I suppose, impact at the end of the day, and what is the point is a really good question to ask yourself, and it's one that I suppose I forced myself to answer that question in the first lockdown, from a business point of view, from a personal point of view, and I think it's something we've all had a little brush with existentialism at this stage, and we have to ask ourselves why would anybody bother to engage with us? Why would anybody use our services? Why would anybody buy our products? And unless you can really take a long, hard look at yourself and answer those questions in this post-pandemic world, you're vulnerable yourself as a person and as a proposition, I suppose. So I suppose that's just a little bit of almost the end of the story before I start the beginning. I think I could talk for as long or as little as you want about my career journey. So please do, and I know I see some questions coming in there, and I'll be addressing them, but please do let me know what you want to hear from me based on what you know about me, because I heard a great line once, which was addressing an audience without knowing what they want to hear is like titling a love letter to whom it may concern. So I really do want to know what your questions are, and hopefully be able to answer them. The potted version of who I am and what I've come through is, I suppose, at the very beginning, it's a story of extreme privilege. The privilege of being born in the first place is one that, you know, we are afforded by virtue of the fact that we're on this call. My body works, my brain works for the most part. These are privileges. I come from a family that is highly supportive and highly loving. We love each other and we like each other. In fact, I am currently in Galway, where I've taken my dad away for a little mini break with my sister, because he's on a little low at the moment because my mum suffers from dementia. So all these kind of multiple whirling elements of people's lives are happening in the background, and the support structures that we have inherent to our being are what allows us to keep going. And when those privileges aren't in place, there is a vulnerability there, and that's, I think, where people like Focus Ireland come in and put those supports in place. So from my position of extreme privilege, and I'm not saying that with smugness, I'm saying it with recognition and gratitude, I went on to do what I wanted to do. My parents wanted me to go to college and get a degree after college, and I didn't want to do that because I'm a very practical person, and I wanted to A, earn money to be economically independent, and B, learn in the doing. And so I gravitated towards the fashion industry, which was a passion of mine, and weaved my way through retail into fashion styling, into fashion broadcasting, becoming a commercial stylist, traveling all over the world, working on fashion campaigns, films, advertising campaigns, and I had the best time for 20 years as a sort of a lone wolf, if you like, somebody who's put together with a group of people as it was required. And then the group, like the circus, would disband again, and then we'd come together to do another job. So I was a freelance agent. And it was really only when I was put together with Brendan to present RT's Off the Rails that I began to get a recognition of what it meant to be part of a system and a team that lived together all the time. And for me, even though I found the RTE piece quite challenging because I wasn't used to working in that way, the support of having somebody by your side who was a partner in crime, who had your back, who respected you, and the feelings were mutual, there was a huge power in that for me. And that was Brendan. And I suppose throughout our now 12-year business and personal friendship, we have consistently invested in our relationship together. There is no doubt that if things had gone differently, we could have fallen out and taken different paths. But I think we had a sense of commitment to each other and a sense of the potential of our union together that allowed us to consistently invest, check ourselves in terms of respect and trust, I suppose, is at the core of all of that. And these are privileges, to have the mindset in place to be able to recognize these values as privileges, and to have space in your brain to create those narratives is both very powerful and very, I'm not going to say rare. I would like to think it's growing, and certainly through the work we do with Lift, it's about helping people to take time to reflect, to understand the values that they stand for, to understand how they enact them on their day-to-day. But reflection is also a gift, and it's one in our busy lives that we struggle with, I think. And it's in the reflection that you find space to think and analyze and strategize. If that reflection time isn't there, then you're solely in the trenches doing the do. And if you're doing and too busy doing that you can't plan, it's very hard to stay ahead of the process, ahead of whatever you're doing. And the value of how we live our lives is in the planning, because otherwise we're solely responsive to our situations. And if we're solely responsive to our situations, we are missing an opportunity to control the direction of travel. So when I started in RTE, myself and Brendan presented Off the Rails for 7 seasons, and it was great. It was absolutely brilliant. And one of the things that was growing was, I suppose, my profile, recognition. We were constantly rating top of the heap for trust, and people believed us and they trusted us and they liked what we had to say. And one of the reasons that I suppose I was able to have the confidence to foster that and to come in with that mindset is at the very beginning, when RT took me on, they had the presence of mind to book a media coach for me, a media trainer, a fantastic guy, if you ever get a chance to come across him, called Paul Musolides. And I arrived into the canteen in RTE, and I was not a happy bunny. I wasn't sure that I was making the right choice. I was walking away from a career as a sort of a freelance stylist. You know, I made a really nice living doing things that I loved with people that I really enjoyed. And I was entering into an institution that I knew nothing about, in a role that I'd never had before. So there was risk and there was change at the real core of that decision. And when I met Paul with my series producer, he kind of took a look at me and he said, "Can I have a quick chat with your series producer?" I said, "Absolutely." So he went and spoke to her for about, I'd say, 30 to 40 seconds. And then we went into a training room and the two of us sat down. And he said to me, "Okay, do you want to tell me what the problem is here?" I kind of looked at him. I was completely taken aback. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I can tell from your face and from your body language that you're not happy to be here. So what's the problem?" So I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what the problem is. I have carved out a professional reputation for myself over the last 20 years as a stylist. And armchair psychologist to be able to deal with the needs of clients and teams and crews. I pride myself on that reputation. And I've made a decision to become a TV presenter. And to be really honest with you, I'm terrified that I'm going to be portrayed or perceived as some blonde fashion bimbo on television. And that's going to become who I am. And he said to me, I just spoke to your series producer and I asked her one question. I asked her, who do you want Sonya to be on screen? And she looked at me blankly and she said, I have no idea. So he said to me, whoever it is that you want to be is completely within your control. And at that moment, I realized that nobody else has the brain space to make any decision about who you are other than yourself. And the upshot of that, and it's a lesson that sounds harsh, but it's been so useful that I've taken throughout my whole career, is nobody cares. Nobody cares. When one of my businesses collapsed in a blaze of glory with $1 million in funding, offices in London and Dublin and 17 staff, and myself and Brendan were brutalized by that process. That was at the start of the summer about 5 years ago. We looked at each other and we said, what are we going to do? Like, we have to explain this to people. The media are going to be all over us. We both have public profiles. This is a failure. And that was at the start of the summer. We made a decision together to do nothing, to just sit on it. And by September, all the emotion had diffused out of that situation. We'd given ourselves time to heal. And the mantra, nobody cares, could never have been truer. Nobody cared that we failed, except us. And so that emotional piece, that sort of rush that you bring to any situation, the chances are that's only yours. The person on the other side of the table doesn't have that. And so that piece of knowledge that came out of failure, that piece of knowledge that came out of the initial vulnerability, that's where the wins are as you move through your career. And I suppose all of that combined has helped me to have the confidence to really ask the question, why? Why bother? Why would somebody buy Lennon Courtney? Why would somebody go to Dress for Success? Why would 20,000 people engage in Lift Ireland to improve their own personal values of leadership? And I think we have a duty to ask ourselves those questions. When first lockdown happened, and Lennon Courtney is now licensed to Dunnes Stores, and through that deal, we sell all over the world. We ship globally. It's phenomenal. That was another business that if we hadn't pivoted to that model, it wouldn't exist right now. And when we went dark for the first 6 weeks of lockdown, when Dunnes were wholly focused on essentials, on towels and pajamas and socks and knickers and food, they had to take down all the brands because it was crowding the logistic. And that was a kind of a moment where you think to yourself, well, I don't exist. My business doesn't exist right now. And there's nothing I can do about that, except that there was. And that was when I took it upon myself to rip up the playbook of who we were and what we stood for, and literally rewrite the product, marketing, messaging, comms strategy for Lennon Courtney, and ask ourselves, why would anybody bother? And the why really was about owning all the satellite messages that myself and Brendan were really passionate about ageism, about social injustice, about gender equality, about empowering women, giving women the confidence, helping women to find their own confidence to achieve. And we baked all of that into Lennon Courtney authentically, because we believed it anyway. And that became how we spoke to our women. We did that through offering, I suppose, additional solutions through our podcast, through all the content that we put out there. And the response was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, because not only did it give our woman, our client, more value over and above the money she was spending to us, it resonated so strongly with her. And I think that why question is so important. as philanthropists, as people who work for Focus Ireland, you're coming to this call now as people who understand the importance of impact. And I think it's not a one and done situation. It's how can I flex this muscle more? How can I grow it more? What more can I do? If I'm really interested in, helping these young people, how can I help where I'm helping now, but help more and go further back down the food chain? It's one of the things, funny enough, with Dress for Success. It's one of the reasons that I founded Dress for Success, because my focus when I was looking for something to create social impact, I wanted to focus on children, because I think, the greatest injustices in our society are done to our most vulnerable, our children. But actually helping the mother to build self-esteem and self-worth and confidence and independence helps the child before the problems even begin. So where does the problem start? And what can we do to create greater impact around that? What you're doing is a wonderful thing in supporting these youth services through your donations. I think we have a responsibility from our positions of privilege to ask, what more can I do? And I think the more we have available to us in terms of knowledge, experience, resources, confidence, position, influence, the more we have a responsibility to use that. Because at the end of the day, what's on your gravestone? It's never going to say, he or she met every KPI. No, it's he or she was a good person who did good with the life that they were given. And I think if we could all take a little bit of that and use that as a mantra for living, the world would be a better place for sure. I'm going to come to some of these questions because I know I probably don't have a huge amount more time. What was the standout moment of your career? Somebody has asked. Probably that massive failure, to be honest with you, because it changed everything and I vowed never to go back there again. The reason that I decided to pull the plug on that business is because I turned around to my business partner who looked like he was about to have an embolism. And I thought to myself, do I want to be holding his hand post-stroke in a hospital bed, having broken a life? And nothing, no business, no revenue, no product is worth that. And I will never, ever go back there again. So that's a real standout moment for me. Question for Briona, which you can come back to. From a services perspective, how is homelessness affecting young women? I'm sure Briona will have thoughts on that as well, but certainly the news is out. The pandemic has had a disproportionately negative effect on women. Women are falling out of employment, falling into homelessness. Women are taking the brunt. I think there's a tide which is going to help to lift women, but we have a responsibility to be part of that as allies, not just with our pocket, but to advocate for women and for their position in society. Sonya, what do companies need to do in order to ensure equality across the workplace? Well, somebody asked me the other day, if I was Minister for Finance, what would I do? And it's really, really simple. I would make sustainable quality childcare universally available for free. Women are being locked out of their capacity to add to our economy and our society because of punitive childcare. And it always falls to the woman. Not always, but predominantly falls to the woman. And if we really want to allow women to thrive in our societies, we need to change the way we view childcare. I was at a Westminster Business Forum pre-pandemic, and I spoke to the Icelandic ambassador to the UK, and I said to him, how do we convince our government that the system of universal free childcare is a good idea? He said, show them the bottom line. At the very least, it will be cost neutral. At the very best, it will unlock 30% to the GDP. So it is an absolute no-brainer. We have to do it. I think oh no, maybe some more questions. One more question. Sonya, you've been so proactive in making strides to help women or those who are marginalized, shatter the glass ceiling. how do you keep motivated when things seem to be going backwards? I think the motivation is in the doing. And so, for example, I lobbied very hard for gender pay gap legislation for the last 4 years. And when I started that journey, I was laughed out of Dodge. People told me that gender pay gap didn't exist. I was making it up. It was a very new conversation at that stage. And I think that sort of persistence and tenacity and unknockdownableness is what you need in those situations. And I don't know where that came from, given my very privileged middle class upbringing. I don't know where I got that grit, but I have it, and you can build on it. And so for me now, the big, as you've probably guessed, the next big bucket is childcare, and nothing can really shift without looking at that. So I think it's about having a focus point. You can't boil the ocean. So what's your focus point, to use the word of the day, and where are you directing your energy? And once you stay focused, you can chip away incrementally at the results, rather than trying to do everything. So I think that's where that energy comes from. I think that's all the questions, and I'm probably way out of time, so I'm going to stop talking now.
That's okay. Thank you so much, Sonia. That was great, and we could listen to you for a lot longer than 20 minutes. I'm just going to hand over now to my colleague Aisling O'Connor. Aisling has been a project leader in our Cork and Kerry service. She's been with Focus for about 3 years. She's going to talk us through her career in Focus and the services her team provide, along with the plans for future projects in the regions that she supports. Aisling, over to you.
Thanks, Briona, and thanks, Sonia, for that. Very inspirational. So as Pete said, my name is Aisling O'Connor. I'm the project leader for the Cork and Kerry services. I joined Focus Ireland in 2018, originally in a project worker position. And I took up the project leader position a few months later. I suppose I've been working in numerous roles across the social care sector since around 2008. So I have a lot of experience behind me, and I suppose it's great to be able to see how things have changed over time and stuff like that as well. And I suppose joining Focus Ireland at the time, why I felt it was the right fit for me was, I suppose, was the different responses and services the organisation offers to those affected by homelessness. I think we need to focus on the fact that not a one-size-fits-all policy, or we need to adapt to people's situations, and fundamentally trying to break the cycle of homelessness. I suppose Focus Ireland's values would be in line with my own values, and that the models of service provision are dictated by the needs of the customers. And I suppose something that always stuck with me here within my role, a customer would have said to us once that they didn't feel like they were a statistic or a number within the service. They felt like they were the person, and they were respected for who they were and what was going on for them at time. And I suppose that has been a massive thing that I've held on to, and I think it's something that we definitely should work towards, and I suppose just a few bits that Sonia would have said in hers. It's about investing in the relationship is a huge part of our services, and that we say what we do and stuff like that. The commitment as well that we give to our customers, that we're there for them, we're at the other end of the phone. And I suppose like that trust being one of the core values as well. Hence, I suppose the importance of treating people with respect and providing a safe environment. I suppose that's the most important thing for us here, as well as services, that people feel they can come to us and tell us exactly what's going on for them, and that we can have open and honest conversations around it. And I suppose more importantly, that people aren't judged. That was a very important thing for us. So I suppose just to give you a bit of a rundown in terms of the services that we provide here in Cork and Kerry. So we have long-term housing. So our long-term housing provides 54 units of accommodation for single people, couples and families. I suppose since the last quarter of 2020 and the first half of 21, we have doubled our housing stock, acquiring and offering 32 new homes, which has seen 36 adults and 32 children housed. I suppose, this is a fantastic achievement for us down here, and I suppose the joy that we get giving someone a key to their home, it's amazing. I suppose only recently we were showing a family a home, and to see the kids just running around all the different rooms and the excitement and the joy in their faces around that, you can't beat that feeling. It's fantastic. And I suppose, look, these properties, I suppose our long-term properties are provided to people who are at risk of homelessness and who will always need the long-term support in order to maintain their home. So they will be allocated a key worker here in the service, who would assist them with any issues that may present, whether it be with their mental health, addiction, and budgeting, or if they're looking for referrals to other support services. So I suppose the big part of it is like all our customers would have a support plan in place, and I suppose that they dictate what their support plan is about, you know, that it's about meeting their own needs and aims and objectives. I suppose one of the kind of main examples is in terms of long-term housing as well that will always stick out for me. We would have had a customer we'd been linking in with for a good few years. She had 3 children in care, would have had kind of access with them on an ongoing basis, but obviously wouldn't have been able to have overnight access because wouldn't have had suitable accommodation for it to work. So she was offered one of our long-term houses. There was a big push to get her in for Christmas, and I suppose like it was the first Christmas she spent with her kids in nearly 7 years. So it was fantastic, you know, that we could get that across the line and to see that happening. And even like we went to help with decorating the house and getting the Christmas tree up, and it's simple things like that that can make a difference for people, you know. Our resettlement and tenancy sustainment services, I suppose the main aim of the service is prevention and sustained exits. So I suppose that would be in line with our strategies. It's providing settlement support to households who are moving out of homelessness and into a new home. So we would help people who are being referred from supported accommodation options. So where they have been in a position to build up the necessary skills to be able to maintain tenancy. However, we'll always need the continued support in regard to maybe accessing entitlements and accessing other services and stuff like that. But I suppose more importantly, we're someone that can be on the end of the phone to somebody if, you know, something happens on any given day that they need assistance with. And I suppose this is also a service that we started in Kerry in August of 2020. I suppose that brought its own difficulties with it. It was set up in the middle of COVID, you know what I mean? So it was a challenging time for us, but I suppose it's a detriment to the staff down there in terms of getting it off the ground. You know, it's very hard to build up relationships with people when we weren't in a position to be meeting people and stuff like that. So look, it was fantastic how the work and the service is going great to date. Our advice and information service is another huge part of the Cork services. We help prevent families and young people and individuals from having to experience homelessness if possible. I suppose for those currently experiencing homeless, we identify the best available supports and options to aid them out of their journey out of homelessness. I suppose the role of the advice and information worker is to assist customers with housing support and just general advice and information, assistance in accessing housing and social welfare entitlements, completion of even housing applications. We get a lot of people that would come to the service who wouldn't even be on the housing list, you know, so it's about getting that step. It's nearly getting on the step of the ladder, you know. And I suppose, like, just to acknowledge, like in the month of May alone, we had 180 calls to that service. So it's absolutely huge in terms of people accessing it. I suppose, Sonya, you would have spoke at length there about young people and stuff like that. And I suppose we provide the aftercare service for young people coming out of care. So we provide long-term accommodation to those who are turning 18 and leaving state care. I suppose Focus Ireland will provide the accommodation, and the support is provided by the aftercare team from Tusla. I suppose at the moment there's about 72 young people who are in the process of turning 18 and leaving state care. So it's a huge amount of people who unfortunately would be entering into kind of emergency accommodation and stuff like that. So obviously it's trying to prevent that from happening. Housing First is one of our new initiatives that we've set up in Cork. It began in 2018, and I suppose the Housing First model is about housing individuals who are considered long-term homeless. So those who've been sleeping rough, those who have been using bed nights in emergency accommodations, and those who would present on a regular basis to A&E. So it's a very specific cohort of people. So I suppose it began in Cork City in 2018. So over the next 3 years would be 40 units of accommodation will be provided. So effectively 40 homes will be provided. I suppose the one thing about the Housing First in terms of how it will work, we have a wraparound team that will be involved on the ground. So having a multidisciplinary team is fantastic in terms of, like, the service will be there and then for people. We won't have to worry about waiting lists or anything like that. So like we have psychologists on board, we have clinical nurse specialists, we have OTs. So having those expertise on board, I suppose that's how the Housing First project is effective in terms of maintaining people's homes, especially for those who are long-term homeless. I suppose one of the first gentlemen that we housed had been sleeping rough for about 15 years. So it was fantastic. And I suppose, look, it was a big, massive change for him at the beginning. He wouldn't even sleep in the bed. He chose to sleep on the ground next to the bed. And we progressed the couch and stuff like that. But it's about, you know what I mean, slowly taking it with people. If people have been in that environment for a long, long time, it's about building up the trusting relationships and stuff like that with them. So I suppose the rollout of the Housing First is also going to continue into Cork County and Kerry as well. So with Cork County, we're just at the commencement of the project. We have our project workers in place. The first cohort of people are after being identified that are suitable for the service. And there'll be 15 tenancies within Cork County, and then the rollout will get the same thing and happening in Kerry at present as well. And there'll be 30 new homes offered in Kerry once it's up and running down there as well. I suppose one of the main projects we have will be our youth housing. And I suppose we're always talking about young people and stuff like that. So our youth housing service was developed in recognition of the need to provide young people leaving state care or those who are at risk of homelessness with support to ensure they acquire the skills necessary to live independently and to avoid the risk of becoming homeless. I suppose it's about building resilience and developing coping skills. I suppose as a service we provide 8 units of accommodation at present, and we provide obviously the support there, and we also run the service in an outreach capacity. We would have a very high caseload in relation to youth housing, just because obviously we're getting referrals from everyone leaving care and stuff like that. So our youth housing it's predominantly for people from the age of 18 to 26. And I suppose within our own accommodation, people stay for a period of 12 to 18 months. And then the emphasis is on these customers kind of moving into our long-term housing options where possible. I suppose the core outcomes kind of the project are kind of providing stable housing for people and kind of permanent connections in terms of having a support structure around them and having, you know, a key worker here in the service to be able to contact when needed. Social and emotional well-being, and I suppose a huge element of it is the education and employment piece. As said, like Focus Ireland is a board member of the Great to Train programme here in Cork, which provides education and training opportunities for marginalised elements of society. I suppose it's around developing their confidence and positive outcomes in their life journey, and in turn their families. I suppose the Cork Education and Training Board is very much involved within this process, and they sit on the board of the Great to Train as well, and have provided funding and will continue to provide funding into the year 2022 as well. I suppose there's many, it gives people many training opportunities, and the majority of our youth housing customers here have access to training and stuff like that. I suppose we have specialised in personal development as well. I suppose it's a core element in preparing people for employment and education. And we've delivered here on site in our own structure, maintaining inclusion and attendance within a core group. I suppose we're also very fortunate through funding received from people that we can fund academically in terms of people going to college, their fees and stuff like that, and materials needed in terms of their education, who may otherwise be excluded from statutory support. I suppose the service also pre-COVID used to offer group study sessions in the past, and in more recent times this has taken place over the phone. I suppose, look, we're getting great news kind of even this morning. One of our customers got a 2-1 in his applied social science degree this morning, so we're ecstatic. And I suppose it just goes to show about the relationship that exists with our customers, that you're a phone call, you know, that they'll ring to let you know how they got on as one of their first phone calls. And I suppose, look, he's going to progress on to do a master's degree in addiction studies, which is absolutely fantastic. And I suppose that's through the support here of the key workers within the youth housing service. And I said it also needs to be noted this young person has been successful and gained employment in Cool Minds Treatment Centre as well. So I suppose this person for us has come through all of our services throughout the years, has maintained their recovery, has done a lot of work for us in terms of peer support. So like would meet with people who are going through what he would have went through years ago. He's 7 years in recovery this year, and it's just fantastic to see the development within him. And I suppose like he is doing kind of research pieces lately, and he's ringing us, like asking us for advice and stuff like that. So it's great to be able to give that back to people as well. You know, it's fantastic. And I suppose we have another young girl, she's completed her master's in education, has taken up a position in the Cork Life Centre in relation to educationally marginalised young people in the community. So I think when you can see you know, what you've given to people and what they're getting out of it and what they're making of themselves, it's absolutely fantastic, and breaking that cycle, you know. I suppose a further combination of young people are midway in relation to academic qualifications, and others are preparing to commence various academic courses and skills-based training for the coming September. Obviously with COVID-19, we had to adapt our services in line kind of with restrictions and guidelines. I suppose we had to think of different ways to engage with people and keep communication with customers open. I suppose this was vital for us, because we would have felt a lot of people felt isolated during the lockdown and stuff like that. So it was about thinking outside the box what we could do, because we weren't allowed to kind of have people into the office and stuff like that. But I suppose we kind of took on different roles. We started doing shopping for people, delivering food, delivering medication where needed. I suppose one of our staff team nearly became a teacher at times. I suppose we were the point of contact with schools around homeschooling and stuff like that. We would have had customers who English wouldn't be their first language, and there would have been struggles around the homeschooling. So we used to print off all the homework here on a Monday, deliver it, and, you know, get involved as much as we need to do. And they're just the simple things, but it's about people, keeping people informed, and, you know, communicating as best we can with people, you know. And I suppose I can't praise the team here in Cork and Kerry enough for what was kind of done during the pandemic and keeping all our customers safe. I suppose in terms of kind of plans for the future, I suppose Briona mentioned a while ago in terms of our organisational strategies, and that customers are at the core of what we do. And I suppose it's about implementing that. I suppose continue to acquire acquisitions and to provide homes for people, and to continue to develop our services. As I said, Housing First services are now rolling out, and it's about ensuring that we roll out them in the best interests of the people that we work with. And again, to meet the ever-changing needs of our customers. I suppose most importantly is kind of the organisation being around being trauma informed, and I suppose it's a big thing and an upcoming thing for us at the moment, that recognising that many behaviours and symptoms are the result of traumatic experiences that people had during their childhood, and that we as an organisation don't re-traumatise that, you know, that we they're called ACEs, so it's like adverse childhood experience. So we become aware of what those experiences were for people and stuff like that, and we don't re-trigger or re-traumatize them, you know. And it could be simple things like where you meet someone, or if someone's running late, that you don't say I can't meet with you or anything like that. It's about, you know what I mean, being aware of the person and their needs. I suppose kind of as Briona mentioned as well a while ago, the organisation has done some amount of work in terms of wellness and stuff like that. And I think, you know, same with training and development, we're always looking at what training needs are there, and we've only recently completed a training needs analysis, you know, so it's important that the staff are getting the training that they need in order to do the work that we're continue to do. I suppose a big thing for us as well, we have the development of our new headquarters here in Cork. I suppose it's a huge thing for us in terms of an office, but we're going to have 15 units of accommodation above it as well. So we're hoping that will come on board for Christmas. So we're planning a Christmas party for our customers. So hopefully we'll be in, but you know, it's about acknowledging the big things as well, you know. I suppose for me, the most important thing is about customers having a sense of hope. And as an organisation, that we're in a position to offer people the opportunity that this is a foundation for change, you know what I mean, that we give what we can, and you know, we're giving people an opportunity, you know, to make the change for themselves for the better. And I suppose, look, I just take the opportunity to thank everyone here today in terms of the WPC who support us to be able to deliver our vital services here in Cork and Kerry.
Oh, great. Thank you, Aisling. That was lovely. Thank you. And it's great to see all the achievements and be able to kind of reach back out to those customers again and see how well they're doing.
Yeah.
So we have a few more minutes, I think, for questions. So there's just one for you, Sonya. When was the first time that you felt that you were successful, or maybe that the risks you had taken had paid off?
I think licensing Len and Courtney into Dunn's was a big moment in business terms, because what that allowed us to do was to take the good bits of the business that we created and plug it into an infrastructural system that could support it. Independent fashion is incredibly hard, but we knew we'd created something good and something valuable. It's just that the model couldn't support us to achieve. And I think that's a really interesting lesson, that just because something's isn't working doesn't mean it's wrong. It might be just that you're doing it the wrong way, you know. So that was a big moment. Honestly, seeing Dress for Success get to its 10th anniversary through some really difficult times in terms of, you know, funding and resourcing and organizational development, that's a major milestone for a small independent not-for-profit to get to 10 years of age. And we're about to enter a really new exciting phase, which I can't talk about right now, but it's going to be transformative for us. So that's phenomenal, and the team are phenomenal. And actually, when we applied for the Manana Heron Fund through Rethink Ireland, I made a decision not to be involved in that funding round or in that application, because I thought it was really important to give the team legs to exist without me in the trenches with them. And they were successful, and we got multi-annual funding, which was just game-changing for us through Rethink. And to be sitting in the audience applauding the team who had done it all on their own was amazing. That was amazing. And for me, leadership is about a process of enablement and generosity that allows you to keep moving on and the people around you to keep moving up.
Great, brilliant. And just before you'd set up Dress for Success, had you seen a problem and thought that you needed to do something about that? Or what was it that inspired you?
Yeah, so it was my mum, really. My mum had two mantras that she drilled into myself and my sister as children, and they were always have your running away money, which is essentially the fact that money gives you choice, and when you don't have any, you don't have any choice. And the second thing she said was, if you're not part of the revenue, you're not part of the decision making. And so money gives you choice and power and influence. Yeah. And so for me, my mum worked all the way through my childhood. She always brought in her own money and was always economically independent. And so I saw that as non-negotiable. And I recognized through that then that women who didn't have that were being denied that power. So for me, that was at the core of everything that I was doing. And I suppose with Off the Rails, we did so many transformation journeys with the women who came to us for, you know, superficial makeovers, but they came to us and we chose them because they were on a development journey of their own, and they were ready to gild the lily and take flight. And the confidence that gave those women made me think, well, if we could deliver that catalyst for change at scale, surely that could create a very positive social impact. So somebody asked the question, you know, what was it about Dress for Success? It was that piece that, you know, fix the mother to fix the child before the problems begin. Yeah. Use what you've got, which is the ability to make people feel more confident and more empowered, and the ability to network and to influence people to come on the journey. So when I read about Dress for Success London celebrating their 10th anniversary at the time, I thought, this is it. This is the one. And this has all the elements that I can adapt to my own situation and use to make a difference.
Great. Thank you for that. Aisling, a question for you. From a services perspective, how is homelessness affecting young women, and have you seen a change during the pandemic?
I suppose we've probably seen a change in recent years in terms of it used to be a majority of men that used to access services and stuff like that, but definitely there seems to be a lot more women coming on stream in terms of accessing the services, especially I think through your youth housing. We've seen a lot of referrals coming through. And I suppose like it's like what Sonya said a while ago, we'd have a lot of young women coming through with children and stuff like that, and I think it brings a different element to it. I suppose it's about accessing the right services for them. I suppose if you've got to worry, if you're homeless and maybe sleeping off and don't have an emergency bed to access, you have a child as well to be worrying about, and it can just bring about different issues for you. So I suppose like that, it's about bringing around change for the families and lobbying, you know, and I think at a local level with their own councillors and TDs around kind of just the people living care stuff. I suppose there is recommendations at present about that Tuesday aftercare services would link with people until they're 26 years of age now, as opposed to 23. And I think that would be a huge improvement in development that would need to happen, because I think when people are leaving care at such a young age, that if they're not involved in homeless services, and unfortunately they can't access that aftercare service, or they're not involved in education, they don't have many supports around them. You know what I mean? It's terrible. They're kind of being left on their own, you know. So I suppose like there is a lot of support groups that have been set up in Cork specifically for young women and stuff like that. And I suppose we were involved in a group kind of even just kind of pre-COVID around bringing young mothers together and stuff like that, and creating links in the community and stuff like that, because a lot of them are on their own. They don't have the support, they don't have the friends, and I suppose like it's important for us when they come in here that we have the up-to-date information and accessing kind of childcare as best we can for people and stuff like that, and just that it's not a stumbling block for people, that we, you know, try to create a platform for young women to get the, you know, exactly what everyone else deserves, you know.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Aisling. A couple of comments here about people loving your brand, Sonya, loving the clothes. Good. They feel great when they're in your dresses.
Good.
So brilliant. And another comment here about, we'd heard last event about the pandemic allowing more mothers access education online, those who couldn't find childcare previously. Could this be something we link in together with Sonya to work on childcare, not just economically viable, but also about equality and access and a pathway out of homelessness?
Love that.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think that's it. It's about sort of a shared jurisdiction to solve problems. You know, that nobody is siloed. That we can all create greater impact together.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that's all the questions answered for the moment, I believe. So we only have a couple more minutes. So just to conclude, I'd really just like to thank Sonya and Aisling and everyone here for joining us today, and for our fundraising team for creating such an amazing space for us to have this discussion, and as always so seamless and everything else. So thank you so much. Thanks to our inspirational guest speakers. Just to finish up though, COVID-19 has challenged us all. But for organizations like Focus, we know that post-COVID there will be an increase in demand for services, and it's likely that this will happen at the same time as a decrease in our funding. And a question was put out there in the comments: how do we help? If you are interested in what you've heard about today and would like to support our work, I would ask you to consider becoming a member of the Circle. So your investment will pay great dividends. Your support will mean so many young people will be given the necessary support to thrive. But you'll also have access to a network of like-minded women. The cost is about €100 a month to become a member, and any one of our team would be happy to help you get involved if you'd like to do that. The WPC is a really unique group of women like Sonya that come together to support vulnerable young people, many of whom are care leavers, to help them get a better start in adult life. For young people, we know who they are. As I said before, we know when they are most vulnerable, and we know how to help them, but we do need your support to do that. For these young people, entering adulthood in homelessness is a scary moment. The opportunities provided to their peers is not there for them, and their potential is robbed, very often through decisions and actions totally out of their control. No young person chooses to be homeless. They don't choose to have no home. By supporting Focus Ireland's Women's Philanthropy Circle, you can help ensure that every young person has a place to call home, where they can flourish into whatever type of person they dream to be. Homelessness robs young people of their potential and their dreams. We want to help to inspire, encourage and support young people to get that back. Youth homelessness is a national problem, and with the government's commitment to providing a strategy to work to end youth homelessness, the potential to make real and lasting change is now. So on that note, we're going to finish up, and I hope we soon get to meet in person at an event that's in not too distant future. So until then, thanks again to our speakers today, and thank you all for joining us, and stay safe and well. Thanks a million. Bye.